We're chatting with country music legend Mr. Roy Parnell. He is going to be at the Harvester Performance Center in Rocky Mount. The show is coming up here in early August, Roy, and gosh, it seems like it's been a little while since you've been in Central Virginia. I mean, I know you've been touring, but any memorable stops to this neck of the woods here that you can remember?
Well, let's see. I'm just trying to think last time we were in your neck of the woods. And you're in Lynchburg, right?
We're in Lynchburg, yeah, and the Harvester is in Rocky Mount, so not too far away.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while since we've been in your part. I mean, Northern Virginia, we play quite often around the D.C. area.
Right.
Anybody with any sense at all would just not go. You know what I mean? I was warned. Recently, this is a little anecdote for you. And your people, I'm sure, listening to this show will be able to say amen to this, because occasionally you probably do have to go into D.C. or around there. But we were playing in Richmond recently, and I'm kind of the thought, if Southwest doesn't go there, I don't go there. And Southwest wasn't flying into Richmond, so I decided to fly into Dulles, rent a car, and drive to Richmond. And being only 90 miles and spending as much time in L.A. as I do, you know, they kept saying, well, the traffic is just terrible. I was saying, listen, I know about bad traffic. You know, I'm going on about that, you know. Driving on the 405 in Los Angeles or the 101 or the Hollywood Freeway, all that, you know, thinking I had that down cold. To go 90 miles in Washington, D.C. on a Friday afternoon to get to Richmond is a 4-hour trip, 4.5-hour trip. So I don't wish that on anybody. So if I had my druthers, we'll just play down there where you all are.
Right.
Virginia. How about that?
Well,
and we'll just leave that up there to them. It's a mess.
Sounds like
no wonder they can't get anything done up there.
I think you're
they
right.
Can't get there.
Right. I think if you put in MapQuest or Google Maps online, it says that Washington, D.C. is 2 hours away from Washington, D.C.
I don't doubt that.
But it sounds like the makings of a good country music song, though. I mean, did you do any songwriting while you were stuck in the car there on that trip?
Not with the words I was saying. No. But it's we're looking forward to the show, and we've had I've had a lot of good memories of that part of the country, and played many shows over the years right there where you are.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's part of the fun when you're a veteran like yourself, the memories of going places, and maybe you go by a venue or you go to a venue again and something sparks there in your head. Oh, remember back in whenever when we had that show, or even when people come up to you at the concerts, right, and say things like, yeah, I saw you 15 years ago. I mean, that's got to feel good, right?
Yeah, it does, to a degree, until they start saying, you know, my grandpa really was into your music and used to come see you play all the time. You know, it's like, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, and it's I think most of us, you know, when we get into to do this thing, I know if it's true for me and the guys I ran with. You know, we ran pretty hard back in the day and probably didn't think we'd live to see 40 years old, you know, and then you turn around, you start taking care of yourself, and then the next thing you know, you're 60, 62 to be exact, and you're still out there, and you're still doing it. And Willie Nelson told me something a long time ago. It was about 20 years ago. We were up in Baltimore. We were playing that pier out there. You know where they have those concerts in Baltimore?
Yep.
I don't know which pier it is, but that's where they have these concerts. And Willie and I have known each other since, I don't know, 74, something like that. And around Austin, course, I live there and he's there too. But at any rate, he told me, he said, listen, he said, the only thing he said, you got to do two things to become a living legend. Do you want to be a living legend? And I said, well, I guess, yeah. That's kind of what we're doing this for, right? And he said, well, you got to do two things, and everybody can do it, but you can if you want to do it. And I said, well, tell me like this. And he said, well, number one, just keep doing what you're doing. Don't change anything. I mean, nothing. Just keep doing exactly what you're doing. No change. I said, okay. All right, I got that. Don't change. Okay. And then we started talking about something else, and then I started thinking about 30 minutes later. He never did tell me what that last thing was, that second thing that I had to do to become a living legend. I said, really, what's that second thing I'm supposed to do? He said, don't change anything. Okay, got that. What else am I supposed to do to become a living legend? He said, oh, don't die. So I did that.
You've checked both those off the list so far.
Yeah. I haven't changed anything, and I'm talking to you. So that's proof that I took Willie's advice.
That's great stuff. We're
every now and then we all have to stop and think, what would Willie do?
Yeah. I think it's great life advice there. We're talking with Roy Parnell. He's going to be at the Harvester in Rocky Mount Friday, August 2nd. Well, while we're on the subject of Willie Nelson, let's get back to him. I've talked to some other Texas music legends, and it seems like you guys like Willie Nelson and I guess Robert Earl Keen and some of those guys come to mind who have gone from Texas to Nashville. Y'all kind of have a kindred spirit there. Explain that. Is it just the musical education you get growing up in Texas?
Yeah, we're a little bit different bunch, I think. We've had so many people move to Texas that it's diluted somewhat, but in essence, growing up there and playing, I mean, live music it's not just something that you do, and I'm talking about the public.
Yeah.
It's not just something you do on a regular basis. It's a way of life. I mean, growing up, it was not unusual to go to these. There are a lot of German dance halls that are well over 100 years old that are still in operation today. And not that they play all oompa music, they don't. They play all kinds of music, everything from Jackie and them to like just rock and roll. But there was going out to see the bands that you support is like a lifestyle down there. And so there, like some places you work, some areas of the country you work, you can only work that area of the country, maybe once or twice a year, or you wear it out,
Right.
In Texas, it's totally different. It's like if you don't go visit them, like monthly, they get mad. They think you're ignoring them.
Right.
And they expect.
We're talking with Roy Parnell. He is a music legend, and he is going to be at the Harvester in Rocky Mount Friday, August 2nd. Leroy, talk about this cool thing you got going on with Gibson Guitars. I know a little bit about it, but tell the fans the full details. It's pretty neat. You've teamed up with them for something special.
We did. There's back in 2011, I had a gold top Les Paul, which is what I started out playing. That was my first really good guitar, was the Gibson 56 in 1956, same model as me, Les Paul. So it's always been my guitar of choice, although I played others along the way. But I always come back to the Les Paul. Well, recently they came to me and they said, we want to do a signature model of this new. We want to do a sunburst Les Paul, so we place where I was born, Abilene, Texas. We found some sunset from that area, and we took that same sunscape and that sound, that same look, and we created the flame top Gibson 59 Roy Parnell Abilene Sunset Les Paul, and it turned out to be a hit. We had NAMM show, which is the National something or another merchandise, music merchandise. So it's a big deal. It happens every year. And we just had that, and we debuted the guitar. And I looked at the sales, and they were already selling these guitars, and they're not cheap. I'm not sure I can afford one, but it's sure a pretty thing. I'll tell you that. And it plays like a dream. And it's a dream come true. I mean, really, for a guitar player, that's what you do your whole life. If you've been chasing it your whole life. And for them to, they're starting all over. They're coming out of the bankruptcy and all that. And in order to, they had 3 artists that they chose to feature. That's me, Dave Amata, who plays with REO Speedwagon, and the guitar player for Paul McCartney's band as well, Brian May, and it's quite an honor. Quite an honor. I don't quite know what to say except just thank you. You know.
Yeah, it is impressive, and it goes along with your impressive resume, I think, with the songwriting and guitar playing for some other artists. What's that studio work like when you're playing for somebody else? Is that more pressure, or maybe less pressure because your name's not on it, or maybe it's just fun? Maybe it's no pressure at all. I don't know.
It's really not after a while. At this point, you kind of figure out who you are, or hopefully you do.
Yeah.
And just as importantly, who you aren't. So when they called me to do session work, I said, well, I'm happy to do it, but just understand that, I do what I do, and that's all I do. I'm not a chameleon. And the studio players who work all the time, who have to make their living at the studio game, they really aren't chameleons. They have to be. I mean, if they want particular sound, they'll explain what they want. And my thing is they just want me to do what I do, which there ain't much pressure than that, and it's just like you go in, you plug in, you go, well, there it is. That's the sound we're looking for. Okay, well, let it roll. And I usually do it the first or second take. So it's not much pressure to it, really. And it is fun. I love playing with other people's stuff. I like seeing somebody else try to film the train once in a while.
Incredible. Well, what about the guitar playing process? Are you a guy that still practices, or you did enough of that in your teenage years that you got it down now and you just kind of play what comes out of your heart?
Oh, I think it's more of that, really, at this stage of the game. I've been playing for so long. But you know what? It's always good, and I always feel better when I do have a little time to myself where I can sit down and actually, try to expand my writing some. I still have that want to in me, and I love learning new things. It's amazing. If you learn one new thing, it opens up a portal to about 20 new things. It's just strange how it works that way, but it does for me. And the same thing's true with the acting process. I've done a little bit of that, and it's like when I would go do a show, a TV show or film, it usually be gone a week or something. When I'd come back, my music would be better. It'd be fresher, and I think it just gets that creative muscle moving, which is another form of practice. And then you're fresher. I don't know how to explain it, but it does work.
Well, the brain is, the brain is definitely a muscle in its own. So I think you hit on something there. Roy Parnell. Next up, you're going to be a motivational speaker. It sounds like, with all this good advice you're dishing out. I was going to ask you about your acting career later on, but Sure,
Uh-huh.
you took my bait early, so tell us about that. How'd you get started on TV and all that stuff? Was that one of those accidental deals too, or what?
It really was. I mean, I've always had a desire to do that, not stage stuff, but screen stuff. Stage stuff is difficult. I mean, it's something that you have to be really disciplined and create. That's like a New York stage actor is one thing, but doing TV or movies, something like that, it's easy because you got your book in your back pocket. You know what your lines are, and you just stand on the mark and you look the way you're supposed to look and you say those words. Now, that sounds pretty easy. And if you get yourself out of the way, it usually does come pretty easy because really you just have to become that person. So it's a different creative muscle. My significant other, she has done a lot of movies. She's done a lot of TV, and she's a much better actress than I am an actor. I'm just sort of I'm about the actor as I am about the guitar playing. I do what I do.
Right.
If that's what you want, then fine. If not, see ya. It's kind of like that because that's all I got. But it's fun, and it's you see some interesting stuff. I mean, that when we did that Walker Texas Ranger thing, that was one of those summer shows. Mark Colley was one of. There were three brothers in that one. Mark Colley was one, I was one, and John Anderson was one. And we were bad guys. I'm always a bad guy. They always put me in a bad guy role. I don't know why it is. You'd think a redheaded, freckle-faced kid wouldn't get typecast that way, but maybe that's the one they don't expect. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it was so hot. They film in Dallas Fort Worth is where they film Walker Texas Rangers. But it was so hot. It had been over 100 like for 11, 12 days, and they were pulling people out of apartment buildings. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad. And so they moved production to Park City, Utah. And they had to rewrite the entire script to make it a period piece, 1888. And he was playing his great-grandfather, who was a bounty hunter. And we were the guys that he was after. So to go from 105 degrees in the shade to 72 in the midday sun in the beautiful snow-capped mountains of Park City, Utah, you kind of go, hey, this acting thing ain't so bad after all. Of course, I understood they were going to be down in the desert the next week, so I don't know. I'm glad I missed that.
This is great stuff. I'm having so much fun. We're talking with Roy Parnell. He's going to be at the Harvester in Rocky Mount Friday, August 2nd. I always make a point when I talk to you legends, music legends, Leroy, to ask you about your songwriting process because you've pumped out some good ones throughout the years. How does that work for you?
It's a mysterious process. Don't really understand it. And it was funny. I hate to be throwing names around like that. It's kind of crazy. But I was talking to, like Merle Haggard was probably the best, in my opinion, that I ever knew. Kyle, that was, a songwriter of the magnitude that, just not hardly anybody I could think of could touch him. And he and I were talking about the process itself. And Merle had a few years on me, and because I know some authors do, they'll write first thing in the morning, and they'll write for an hour, and then they put it out. And that's what they do every day. And Merle said, absolutely not. He said, I don't write anything unless I have to. I said, really? And he said, yeah, man, unless it's so important that it's keeping me up nights, I don't mess with it. Because, he said, it's just a process I don't understand. And really, it's a process I don't understand either. I just know a couple of hard and fast rules. After moving to Nashville in '88, and Bob McDill was right next. We had offices cubicles, not cubicles, but we had offices. And that whole building was full of writers, and it was a magical time because I was around all these guys who had, storied careers and lovely people that really just took me under their arms, and I walked out of there with a master's in songwriting, but I still don't understand it. And even then, I think back on it, two things I can tell you is that part of it you're not going to understand. That's the inspiration part, but the perspiration part is the other part, and that means you've got to nail yourself to that chair for whatever allotted time that you decide that you're going to allot to it until it is done. And how do you know it's done? I don't think we ever get done with anything, or at least I don't. You just finally give up. It's just finally like, okay. And Guy Clark he always felt like two things he would tell me. He said, song's not really written until you've played it for an audience. And that's true, because things will be unveiled when you play that song for an audience, and you'll see there are holes in the song that I didn't see before because I was singing it to myself. But when I'm conveying it to an audience, it's a whole different thing. And that's when I really test the water. So Guy heck, every time he'd record a song, he might change. It's liable to change because he's found a better way, and he was always searching for that. He was always digging for excellence. And Guy was my neighbor and my co-writer. And I was really lucky, Kyle, really lucky to be around some guys that have deep thinking people, writers of magnitude that we'll not see again in our lifetime, I don't think. I certainly don't see them now. Occasionally, Jason Isbell was on this last show that we did at the Wild Horse in Nashville for this NAMM show that I was talking to you about.
Mm-hmm.
The guitar thing, unveiling of the guitar and the concert that ensued. And I'm gonna tell you, he's hitting on all cylinders right now. He's a serious writer. If you don't believe it, listen to a song that I think I heard him do it on Austin City Limits and blew me away, called Vampires. He's married to Amanda Shires, and she's a fiddle player. And it's it's a great piece of work. I can't listen to it without crying. It just touches me that deeply. So there are writers out there. I don't mean to say that it can't be done. I'm just saying in the current, what I'm seeing coming out of Nashville right now is I'm seeing a lot of different things. This is like the Wild West as far as the music business is concerned. But this writing business, so much has turned to programming.
Mm-hmm.
That now they're bringing, this has been going on in Los Angeles for 25, 30 years, where these guys, there are people who sit in front of a computer and program the drums and program the whole track's programmed. And then the lyricist will come in with a lyric, maybe or maybe not, and then just fit something around this track, which is so vastly opposite of the way the guys like Bob McDill and Roy Burke and Charlie Black and Sonny Morton. These guys are heavy duty. They're so I was schooled that way. But you know what? I see what these guys are doing today, and I see validity in that too. It's just a different process altogether. I myself find that I'm raising an 8-year-old son by myself, so my days are not quite as serene as they might be otherwise. And it's not because he's difficult. He's not. He's the easiest kid. I got really lucky. Jack is just he's wonderful, and he just gives me no trouble at all. and we do very well together. But still, my mornings have always been my magic time. Uh, uh, First thing in the morning, make sure the phones are off. Uh, Make a good, horribly strong cup of coffee, and sit down with a blank piece of paper. Nothing more inspiring to me than a cup of coffee, no phones ringing, not a thought in my mind, and a blank piece of paper. Anything can happen within the next hour that I give to that, and I do that, and I try to do that. In a perfect world, I would do it every day, but of course, we don't live in a perfect world. We have lunches to make and schedules to keep, and you know, if you're a parent, you're a taxi driver. That's what you really are. you you heal broken hearts, and you that's kind of what you do.
Well,
How to get these little guys up on their feet so they can run down the road on their own. Pretty good.
I think you got a great vibe going, and you can tell that you've still got the passion for the music after all these years, Leroy. What else do we
Yes,
need to
sir.
talk about before we let you go back there to being a dad, or maybe figuring out another song? Did we miss anything? Any new albums on the horizon, or anything like that? What's coming up next after this tour? I know after the show
You
in Rocky
know,
Mount, you're down in North Carolina. It's a pretty full tour you've got coming up.
yeah, it is. This August is going to be very full. We're going to Colorado not once but twice. We're doing two different festivals out there, so it's heating up. But the show that you guys are going to see, I think this is what's probably most important. Um, the My significant other is Lisa Stewart. Now you may remember Lisa. She was on B&A Records back when I signed with Arista Records, and she is a formidable talent. And she sings back up with me, but then she also sings some of her songs too, which really adds to the show. And people have really, really responded well to that. And there again, like we were talking about the session work, it's fun to play behind somebody for a minute and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of take a breather and just let somebody else be strapped to the front of the train for a minute. Um, and she does it so very well. I think the show's better now than it's ever been. Because, you're always, at least I am, I'm always trying to do the best I can for my audience. My audience is everything for me. And I know you feel the same way our audience keeps us eating pretty regular. And I don't ever take that for granted. And I love being able to come say hi to folks after the show and sign and do all. I you start to really appreciate these things as you start to. So I'm going to be doing this I'm a lifer, man. There is no other way for me. This is it. And I would not choose a different path no matter what. It gets hard, but as long as those people out there are enjoying themselves and it can give them a break from their workaday world for 2.5 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is, then I've done my job. And just for a little while, you don't have to think about the mortgage and the babysitters and the college tuitions and all the things that we all worry about. You just kind of can forget it, and that's really what music's about, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's medicine. It's just medicine for the soul.
And if folks have never seen Leroy Parnell in concert, it's country, but it's all your other influences too. You're going to get some rock and roll style stuff and some bluesy stuff, and
Oh,
gosh, who
absolutely.
knows what you might get a notion to play up on stage, right?
Well, it's what I really read the crowd. As a child, of course, all about my association with Bob Wills as a kid, and I watched that, and I watched the old man. He never had a set list. I know what I'm going to start with, and I know what I'm going to close the show with, but what happens in the middle of the show is all up to the crowd. I'm watching them. I'm watching what they're responding to. maybe they're more of a ballad crowd and want to hear, that kind of thing. And you can tell pretty quick. Or maybe they just want to rock, or maybe they want to do both. But you've got to know if you're calling the shots up there, you better know what you're doing, because pacing is everything. And it's my job to take them on a little trip. Like I said, once again, let them forget their troubles for a little while.
Outstanding stuff. Leroy Parnell, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. Like I said, you can tell the passion. If anything, it seems like it's grown over the years. I mean, I just hearing you talk about music is incredible. This has been a lot of fun.